coverage continues in a moment. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website, force13.com, our YouTube page, youtube.com/Force13, on Facebook under the same name, Force13, and our Twitter handle, it's @Force13 if you wish to get in touch. You can also add Force13 on Skype, and my personal account on Discord, Fool13, at extension 9094. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Hello, this is Force 13 Live. Barry is somewhere on that screen. That's not the best screen to start on. It is on the verge of hurricane status right now and a bit of confusion going on. We'll tell you all about it in just a moment. My name's Nathan Foy. I'm here in the studio once again. It's nice to see you all once more. I was here for the early hours of this morning's coverage when we initially thought the storm might have been making landfall, but we're here again now to actually capture that moment and keep everyone informed during the whole process. I'm here in the studio. I'm joined by several people out there right now as well in our Discord room. We are joined by Isaac. Hello, Isaac.
Hello, Nathan.
Nice to see you again. You were here last night. We're also joined by Cooper.
Hi, Nathan.
Nice to see you again, and Ryan is also here too.
Hello.
Good morning to you all. Barry, we're still putting at tropical storm status at this time, and so is the National Hurricane Center according to their last update. Their next update is coming up in an hour. The automated system, the ATCF, have upgraded it to hurricane status. We haven't, for two reasons. One, the National Hurricane Center upgraded it to 70 miles per hour earlier based on a reading on Eunice Island of 71 miles per hour. Since then, no sustained winds that high have been recorded on that island, or anywhere else as far as I'm aware. And also since then, cloud tops have started to wane quite a lot in the storm. So it's a close one, and we'll have to see what happens at the National Hurricane Center's update. I don't know if any of you guys have any opinions on that.
Yeah, I was looking at radar earlier, and unless this is a mesovortice rotating around the common center main circulation. Looked like it's made landfall quite a while ago. Just looking at radar, but it's hard to say really. It could be just a mesovortice that just formed and happened to look like the main circulation. So it's kind of tricky at this point.
Now, according to real-time ATCF, which is experimental, Barry is only 7 miles off Marsh Island, Louisiana. So if we go by those numbers, landfall is imminent. If we look at some visible imagery, you can see a little thing that's moved inland already. And if you look at some other variations, especially on satellite, it would appear that it's further south. Does anyone know where exactly Barry is, or indeed how strong it is? It's a very strange one. Ryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, Barry has just been a really weird storm. I mean, I don't know where it is or how strong it is. I think it might be probably 70 miles an hour right now. But, again, I don't really know.
In 2019, we don't know where a storm is or how strong it is.
Well, we know the general location. We just can't pinpoint an exact center. That's the difference.
Alright, if you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're setting up here, send a message. Start your message with Force 13, all in text. We'll get to any questions that you've got. In the meantime, you're looking at the automated stream there, showing all the other aspects of what we track. Obviously nothing going on elsewhere in the world apart from Tropical Depression 4E in the Eastern Pacific that the National Hurricane Center no longer expect will become a tropical storm, but that probably doesn't really interest anyone.
Does that thing still exist?
Oh yes.
Thought it'd be dead. Oh, okay.
Alright, we're loading up a RAM slider now to show you the latest imagery of Tropical Storm Barry. And you can just see how that convection has really died in the last few hours here. Could anyone possibly speculate as to why?
I think that it possibly could be due to the center being inland at this time. It's currently still
What would make more
ambiguous where
sense?
exactly that center is. But, some fixers have it placed offshore, while others have it placed inland, and waning of the convection often happens as a storm approaches or makes landfall. So that could be a reason as to why it's waning as of recently.
You may have also seen on the latest National Hurricane Center rainfall graphic, they have scaled down their expected rainfall from the storm now. If we could get that back on the screen here somewhere. There it is for southern parts of Louisiana, south central now. You're looking at 10 to 15 inches, so nowhere in that 15 to 20 inch zone anymore. What you'll also notice on this rainfall chart is that the 6 to 10 inch rain gradient extends quite a way, pretty much follows the Mississippi River all the way up just to the northern tip of Tennessee and slightly beyond. So that's an interesting area there that's all going to get a huge amount of rain, and all of the tributaries and the Mississippi River itself could be inundated. How much is that flooding risk upstream? Does anyone know?
If you ask me, it seems quite significant, as much of the Mississippi River is already cresting rather high.
Well, there we are, looking at the risk of flash flooding here. 20% moderate, extending through almost as far as that 6-inch rain boundary. High chance, 50% or higher flash flooding for still a large part of Louisiana there. So it is still a serious situation as we watch the storm move in. Alright, let's take some questions. There's a question that's a bit ambiguous. How long do you think it will hit? Not quite understanding the grammar of that question. I assume a landfall time estimate, which is easier said than done with this storm because where is the center again?
Oh, it might have already hit land. Like, I don't know. We don't know.
Indeed,
It
no
could
one
be-
seems to know. Not even the National
Yeah.
Hurricane Center.
It could be just like a mesovortices rotating around a common center, or it could be like actually the storm did make landfall, but we just don't know it yet. It's hard to
Or
say at
it's
this
like
point. It's definitely one of those
making
difficult
landfall right
storms.
Yeah.
Just trying to see if we can get some early visible imagery.
Mm.
That might take
I
a
don't
little
know
bit
if
of time.
So I don't know if you look at the Lake Charles radar, you able to make out
You've
like some
sent in an
sort of
annotation, Isaac. Shall we show that?
feel like it.
Well, there is an annotation that you've sent in. What is that depicting?
Well, where the possible center might be. This is the original center that we were tracking. What 4 or 5 hours ago when we were going live at around 3 in the morning Central. It went up to the northwest, and now it's over by the looks of it over Lake Arthur, Louisiana at this point in time, or near Lake Arthur, Louisiana at this time. But before that, though, there's another mesovortice right around in the same general region too. So that leads me to believe that these are just mesovortices, possibly. But then again, I don't. What do I know? It could be it could be the main circulation that went over land. But I just wanted to note that on radar.
Interesting. All right, so that's one thing that we're looking at there. Let's see. I'm just trying to get some other imagery up. Okay, look, we're going to have to do with a still image here. This is the mess that is Barry this morning. A mass of cloud, very little clear structure. Alright,
Yeah.
take 6 more questions. Is it possible a storm is splitting and breaking down? Splitting?
Well-
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know about splitting,
What do you think this storm's effects will have on Louisiana?
flooding, and price some storm surge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
storm
of
surge,
course.
though, maybe. Yeah, and then
Storm surge
flooding
could reach
probably.
6
it
feet.
looks like.
Yeah, lots of significant storm surge and freshwater flooding, especially further inland and along the Mississippi River.
Asking us for radar images. I can't bring them up here, but if anyone wants to screen share them for us on the stream, then you're welcome to. A question about 4E. Is it getting sheared to death? Haven't even looked. Probably.
Probably is, though, yeah.
Last I looked at it, it was being sheared, and it was diminishing significantly in terms of convection this morning, but it's had a resurgence recently, but it's still being sheared.
And just to reiterate, that it is a stage 5 on the CDPS scale. That was upgraded earlier today. When was that now? I think it was when we were off air earlier?
I know we had it on the update as a stage 5.
Yeah, of course, the update that came out an hour or two ago having stage 5 on the CDPS, which is devastating in its category on that 10-tiered scale. So that is quite severe. That is assuming it reaches hurricane status by the time it makes landfall, which it might not. So you're looking at borderline stage 4, stage 5 here.
That's interesting.
What else do we have? Just looking through here. Why do we still have a 1% chance of category 5? Because we can't use a 0% graphic on that one at the minute. So
Yeah.
1%
Who
may
knows?
as well be 0%.
It could just defy all.
No,
rules
don't
and
even
just
mention
get
it.
Well, it's not going to happen, but who knows?
How do you know?
Who knows? Okay, it's
Alright.
not going to happen.
Isaac,
No.
show us what we're looking at here.
Well, right there is a loop over. Oh my goodness! Excuse me for my voice there. I don't know what happened. This is a loop over the last 200 radar scans off of the Lake Charles radar. You can make out that mesovortice going down like that in the first few frames, and then the second one coming in and going over pretty much the same general reasons. That's leading me to believe these are mesovortices rotating around either a common sensor here, or like I said, it could be just my early mind playing tricks on me, and I could actually be the legit sensor there. But looks like maybe some mesovortices rotating around here, so it looks like it's quite close to landfall, if I had to say so myself, if it hasn't made one already. Looking at that.
Alright, let's just get some information here. Looking at the real-time ATCF, which is experimental only. I'm just getting the coordinates now, the latest coordinates as of the top of this hour, which puts it, just clarifying here, still 7 miles off the coast of Marsh Island, according to the real-time experimental ATCF. The National Hurricane Center will update at the end of this hour, and at the moment, just to read out what their warnings are. A hurricane warning is in effect for Intracoastal City to Grand Isle, a tropical storm warning for the mouth of the Pearl River to Grand Isle, and Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Maurepas, including metropolitan New Orleans, and Intracoastal City to Cameron. A storm surge warning is in effect for Intracoastal City to Biloxi and Lake Pontchartrain. A storm surge watch is in effect for Biloxi to the Mississippi-Alabama border, and a hurricane watch is in effect for the mouth of the Mississippi River to Grand Isle and Intracoastal City to Cameron. And a tropical storm watch for east of the mouth of the Pearl River to the Mississippi-Alabama border. Given where this storm is likely to make landfall, and if it was to become a hurricane, it's making landfall right on the western edge of the hurricane warned zone. And is anyone surprised that they haven't extended that hurricane warning?
Well, I mean, really, if there were going to be hurricane force winds, they would be on the eastern side, I would think, because that's usually the strongest side of the storm.
Interesting. A question just came in there. Is the worst yet to come for New Orleans? Well, the way it's gone here, there might be some more rainfall yet, but how much rain did we have them expecting now? I think it's 5 inches of further rain in New Orleans. Winds should begin to die down soon, by this evening. So I'll give it till this evening and see what it's looking like then, and then I would say yes, probably the worst will be over by then. For definite.
Yeah, New Orleans seems to have avoided much of the brunt of Barry here.
More questions about whether there's been any tornado touchdowns. There was a tornado warning early this morning at about 2 a.m. We were live covering it east of New Orleans. That's the only one I've seen. There was one in Mississippi an hour or two ago as well. But apart from that, I haven't seen much. I wasn't around for much of last night's coverage, so I'm not sure what you were spotting back then. But looking ahead, nothing much going on at the minute. Of course, the bulk of the storm is still well offshore. Much of the heavy weather, so we might start to see more of that activity.
Yeah, I'm looking at Recon right now.
Yep.
And yeah, it looks like the highest winds that they're recording now in the latest mission, AF304, looks to be about 59 or 58 knots. Surface level, there's about 2 readings that are suspect, but there's a few that are not. And those are, keep in mind, those are 10-second winds there. Those are not 1 minute sustained, so you probably want to lower that down by about 10 miles an hour.
So they're not finding any hurricane force winds?
At this point, no, but then they're traveling down south, so if they were to find any, it would probably not be in that part. It would probably be more on the northeastern side, where they recorded hurricane force flight level winds earlier.
When do you think they'll be back there?
Probably in about an hour or an hour and a half, depending on where they decide to, if they decide to go to the left or if if they decide to go to the west or the east, rather.
Well, that's
Sorry, I keep
inconvenient.
my
The National
bearings.
Hurricane Center updating in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there is the latest radar on the screen. Just trying to get some visible satellite through slider here, which is a little bit glitchy, but you're starting to see some of it at least. And not too many convective towers firing off.
Yeah, I mean, if this thing hasn't made landfall already, it's really darn close to. But like Cooper was alluding to earlier, there could be a telltale sign that it did make landfall, or at least is really, really close to making landfall, and it's losing that those sea surface temperatures as it's doing so.
Ah, yes. Good point.
Oh, sorry for that.
Let's go back to the infrared, because I think it loads better on here. So there's the latest infrared loop here, and that covers a 2-hour period roughly. And you can just see how the black areas, which are minus 75 getting on minus 80 degree cloud tops, the colder the better by the way, have been really depleting, and it's now down to generally minus 70s at the most, and not much of that even.
Yeah, it's certainly been degrading in terms
So,
of cloud top temperatures.
what's the cause? Wind shear, dry air? Let's see if we can get some water vapor imagery out of this here.
Last I saw, I don't think dry air was too much of an issue, but I could be wrong.
It still lingers off to the north, but this graphic probably shows that depletion of the cloud tops even better. Just how they have died off in just a 2-hour period here, which really sheds quite a bit of doubt over whether this is actually a hurricane or not, like the ATCF is suggesting. I would be quite surprised if NHC went with hurricane status based on this, unless they find a direct observation on the ground. They went with 70 miles per hour initially because there was a weather station on Eunice Island, which I think is just offshore somewhere, that recorded winds of 71 miles per hour. I've checked that location since, and winds have gone down to 66. And apart from that, it's recon. They're not finding anything at the minute. And satellite appearance is getting worse. So it's all pointing towards this not being a hurricane. Stranger things have happened, and they might find some crazy reason to go with hurricane status by the end of this hour. We'll see. And then we'll have to scrutinize it very closely.
Yeah. I mean, we've had storms that have been lopsided and asymmetrical before, and still been hurricanes before. A good example that I could think of off the top of my head would, of course, be Earl of 1998. That one was pretty lopsided and was classified as a hurricane. I think solely due to recon alone. If recon wasn't in it, it would probably been a lot more weaker. But there's a lot of examples of that around.
Yeah, interesting. We will pick up any updates as soon as they arrive. The ATCF hasn't done one of those irregular updates that it sometimes does, so it looks like they're sticking with that number. The latest information from the real-time ATCF, which we've been watching very closely because it's depicting the storm just 7 miles offshore. That is experimental, but we are looking at those numbers nonetheless. The latest information is that it is now... I've just got to plug the numbers here. And I've got to be careful where I point my mouse. It's now 6 miles offshore, according to the latest real-time ATCF. That is, again, experimental, non-operational, but that is one of their indicators that they might well run with. 6 miles off Marsh Island.
Hmm.
So that brings it very, very close. If it's true.
Yep.
Of course, landfall is a very symbolic thing when it comes to these cyclones. It doesn't mean a huge amount in the grand scheme of things. Of course, it does mean that the storm has pretty much run out of time for intensification, but usually it does run out of time slightly before landfall. And of course, the storm's impacts, the full impacts, are usually felt also slightly before landfall. So the landfall itself, especially with weaker storms, is more symbolic than anything. Doesn't mean too much in the grand scheme of things.
I just wanted to put a little update on Recon. Recon is turning to the northeast now, so we're probably going to get some readings of the strongest side of the storm. If there's any hurricane force winds in there, it'll probably be seen within about an hour or so.
A whole hour?
Yeah, because it's not that far away for them to make it towards that kind of heaviest core of winds. So I'd say about maybe an hour at most, maybe an hour and a half if they have any technical difficulties.
Not in half an hour then, because that's what the NHC would love to get, readings in the next half hour before they put out their update.
It depends. They're already getting hurricane force flight level already, so it could be possible.
That's interesting. So how far away are they getting those hurricane force flight level winds?
Probably, see here, maybe 30. I'm just guessing here. This is not like an actual like reading, but probably about 30 miles away from where the possible center might be.
And planes fly pretty fast. I think they'll get there within 30 minutes.
Well, they're moving northeast. I'll just send you a picture actually, and see what you make of it.
Yeah, they're
because I'm not good at guesstimating stuff.
All right. Well, we'll see if we can show that in just a moment. Well, that is the picture that Isaac's put through to us. So they've just gone down there at the bottom, and they're moving up towards the northeast. And I mean, really, the strongest winds by now will be pretty much exactly where they're flying into in the next 10 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. We might have some breaking information that comes in at any time here. We are sitting and waiting to see whether there is any observational evidence to suggest that Barry is a hurricane, because we're struggling to see it on satellite imagery and we're struggling to see it on the ground. So can Recon, the hurricane hunters, find hurricane force winds, and that would mean an upgrade to hurricane status, which is obviously pretty bad news. It would be just the 4th named storm to make landfall in Louisiana as a hurricane in July. The other 3 were Bob in 1979, Danny in 1997, and Cindy in 2005.
Yeah, that is if it gets there.
What are you implying? It'll stall for 5 days and die?
No, I'm saying if it. No, I'm saying if it gets to.
If they find hurricane force winds.
Yeah. If it gets to a hurricane, that's what I mean. It might not.
Sure. Well, this is a fascinating hour that we have ended up in here, because it could make landfall this hour according to the experimental ATCF data. We could find a hurricane this hour. The National Hurricane Center will be updating with the latest information within the next half hour, usually a little bit early. Hurricane warnings might get extended, so stay tuned because some important information might be coming up here. Anyone like to make any more comments here before we take a short break?
Well, I'm looking at this right now. The funny thing is, Recon, with the center that I think they are like suspecting, what they think is the center, has already made landfall. So I don't know if that means that the storm has made landfall yet, or this is a weird storm. That's all I gotta say.
We keep saying that, sounding a bit like broken records, I know, but that's all we can really say about this storm at the minute, especially when it looks so poor. Visible isn't really producing any results. Recon will tell us some more about the structure of this storm if they get round there. But they don't really fly over land, do they?
No, they're not. I don't think they're. I forgot exactly why they don't. I think they're just like not allowed to. So they're just have to rely on ground
Suppose it
observation
could be
from.
a safety hazard from flying debris.
Yeah, true. From the drop zones.
Well, no, not that, but flying debris from buildings or what have you, loose objects hitting recon planes.
Yeah, true. True fact. Yeah.
I assume it
Just
must be
statement.
that. All right. We might take some more questions in the next half hour. We're gonna take a short break now. Only a very short one. We'll have the latest information on this storm and whether it's become a hurricane or not in the next half hour. Stay tuned. This is Force 13 Live. This is Force 13 Live. We're back with Tropical Storm Barry, but for how long? Could it be a hurricane in the next advisory from the National Hurricane Center, which is coming out within the next half hour? I'm joined again by our team, consisting of Cooper, Isaac, and Ryan. Any news for us over there?
Not any from me. Oh yeah, there actually is some for me. Recon looks like they're finding. So far, they found peak surface winds. Peak 10-second surface winds of about 63, 2 knots or so.
Ooh.
Within the past 3 minutes here. But those are 10-second readings again.
Still a little bit Little bit to go.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's very close. That is very close. 64 knots is hurricane force winds, 1 minute sustained.
Yeah. But that's all I have for now.
There's not a whole lot about Barry I can say that hasn't already been said.
Well, we continue to look at the imagery here of the demise of those cloud tops in the last few hours. But is it enough to prevent Barry from reaching hurricane status before landfall? The ATCF, the automated system, is saying hurricane status at the minute, and the experimental ATCF, the automated system, is suggesting that landfall is imminent. Let's see if we can get another estimate now. It was 6 miles away, according to them, from land, and now it is 5 miles from land, according to the latest ATCF experimental. 5 miles. So drawing ever nearer throughout the hour. We start the hour, I think, what was it, 9 miles, and now it's 5. If that information is true, then landfall should occur in the next hour. We are, of course, waiting for the National Hurricane Center to update. They might hold it back a little bit to so that they can get some information, as much information as possible, from the Reconnaissance flight before they put out their update. I say that because we often expect them to put their updates out early, because they often do. But of course, they aren't obliged to do that, and the update could come out at what time is it? Over there now, 10 o'clock on the dot.
Yeah.
So it could come out at that time. But we'll be here whenever it does drop to see what their decision is. Tough one to call. What do you guys think?
If it did make it to hurricane status, unless the reconnaissance plane now suggested that it's the hurricane right now as we speak, if it was a hurricane, I believe it did it a few hours back ago for a very, very brief period.
Yes, and I'm inclined to tentatively agree that it probably did reach hurricane status some hours ago.
Possible.
Yeah, it is possible.
That is certainly something we'll have to look at in post-analysis.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, we are just nervously waiting here for the next update. Maybe some recon data might come in the meantime as to whether that bottom bar will turn yellow and that Barry will be a Category 1 hurricane. So if you've got any comments or questions whilst we wait, send them in. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and we can take your questions. It'll light up big and bright for me. But I might interrupt anyone at any time with the latest news. Of course, the gale force winds extend out up to about 175 miles it was earlier towards the east. I believe Thomas has joined us.
Yeah, I have. Hello to everyone on the stream. For those of you that have stayed overnight, first of all, you're nuts for staying that long. But second of all, thank you so much for watching the coverage, and thank you for supporting Force 13.
Thomas was streaming. When did you start streaming yesterday evening?
I think it was before the evening.
Yesterday afternoon? What time?
I think it was, wasn't it like 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock?
Yeah.
4 p.m. Central Time yesterday. And you took a break a little bit later on, and then I took the stream at 1 a.m., and you were there until 5 in the morning. And he's back again now at 9:37.
Yep. I've got my nice 4-hour power nap. Got my nice power nap, and and I'll be able to go quite a while. I will admit that sleep was quite nice. But
Yeah, of
it
course,
was
Thanks,
typically
Thomas.
when storms make landfall, we do scale down our coverage here, but the Force 13 US channel might be taking the initiative after Barry makes landfall. I'm yet to hear anything set in stone on that, but we do have a US channel if you're not familiar. Just search Force 13 US or on the URL on our YouTube page, just add US onto the end and it will take you there. We're still waiting for that update from National Hurricane Center. It might not be very quick. We're coming up to 22, so there's still a 20-minute period in which it could come in. Any news from Recon?
Let me go and see about that right now, actually.
I
Yep, new. Oh, sorry, Cooper. Go ahead.
I haven't seen any new observations above 63, 64 knots from flight levels. So
That's interesting.
Yeah, only seeing
Yeah, the winds are
maybe.
decreasing on the slightest pass.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, really, they've only found winds of maybe the support of only 70 miles an hour.
Question, do we expect anything else over the rest of July? In the Atlantic? Somewhat doubtful, not impossible. The Pacific, Western Pacific, looks like it might be warming up later this week, next week.
the strange thing about the Atlantic is, though, as soon as we had gotten 2L, 92L, which is now bare, we also have numerous tropical waves that are surviving at least longer than normal in the main development region for
Right.
July. So to see one of these make it to the Caribbean and into the Gulf and develop doesn't seem that like that far of a stretch. So I don't know. I think we could see one other storm, maybe two other storms if it's really unlucky. But we'll see. And if they do form, they may not even hit land. So it's not like they're all going to be land impacting storms.
Again, we are waiting for the latest from the National Hurricane Center. It will be very interesting to see what they go with. Thomas, we're keeping our intensity at 70 miles per hour. Do you agree?
At this point, yes, I haven't had a chance to look at observations in the past here too much. I'd agree with 70 right now. The satellite appearance does show that convection shifting to the south and to the east, just as was predicted to occur numerous hours ago when it was supposed to make landfall originally. But we are starting to see that occur now. With that being said, we're also seeing satellite appearance just when it comes to the general cloud tops themselves look worse as well.
Yeah.
The highest that I'm seeing is maybe 75. But before we were seeing maybe even close to the
But you're
90.
You're not even seeing widespread minus 70s anymore.
No, and it's really just down to the fact that this is interacting with the land, and I think that it was strengthened right until now, and I believe the reason for that, honestly, is because the center of circulation itself is decoupled from the convection to an extent, and I think there is a fair chance it could be over land.
Here we go again.
Has this already been said before?
Yeah, we don't know whether it's made landfall, making landfall, or hasn't made landfall. Some observations, radar visible, suggesting that it might have made landfall. The real-time experimental ATCF says it's now just 5 miles off the coast of Marsh Island. And satellite would suggest that perhaps it's a little bit further south, but probably not anymore. So it's really interesting as to where exactly this thing is, and this type of storm makes us sound like total amateurs.
The visible imagery shows the center over land.
Is it the center though?
Yeah.
It shows
Yeah.
the center of the broad circulation over land. Maybe not
Hold on,
the dominant.
I haven't been showing
it-
your imagery yet. Let's get that up on the screen here.
All right. Well, again, at least from what I'm seeing, is the sunrise is on Bear. We're seeing the convection really starting to get pushed farther south as the ridge at the 500 millibar height continues to build in and really prevent convection that does get to that height to follow due to the center not having that much influence in the upper level. What's going on right now is it looks like the broad center has made landfall, if you will. The broad center of circulation, if you put a center point on, looks to be over land. Whether the dominant center that is producing all the convection is over land is yet to be seen, although it doesn't really look like it because convection still looks to be firing off on the southern side quite a bit. But there has been enough weakening, at least in my opinion, in recent imagery to say that there is a fair chance that center is the center. But still, I'm going to go with the actual center, if you will, being just off the coast of Louisiana.
Interesting. And that's all we can really say. Interesting. What is going on exactly? We don't really know. We do know that the threat still is that rainfall. And as soon as we know anything, we'll let you know with the latest information. And of course that storm surge, which could reach 6 feet and probably already has in some areas. Rainfall could reach 15 inches further in central Louisiana. No longer predicting 20 inches of rain. Obviously some of that time has elapsed. Some rain has fallen overnight. But another 15 inches of rain is possible for parts of south central Louisiana. And a large area of 6-inch rain all the way up the Mississippi Valley, as far north as Tennessee, maybe even into southern Illinois.
Yeah, but it probably won't be nearly as much, be too much rain, though.
Yeah. I do find it interesting. The ATCF at the moment does have this as a hurricane, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
The NHC going with 70. I think it did peak earlier. I don't think it's
Yes.
that anymore. I think if it hit hurricane status, it did that while or just after we went off the air.
That is quite possible, yes.
Because that did look to be the inner workings of an eye-like structure that we're forming. But obviously, the storm's not going to be able to pull that off anymore. Barry's decoupled. And if you notice on visible imagery, it's actually starting to look similar to its old appearance. All the convection is displaced to the south.
Yeah, I remember you drawing those time and again.
Yeah.
Essential overcast. And we just have this center now. So I feel like we're gradually transitioning from normal tropical cyclone back to Barry being Barry. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see if it manages to completely change its appearance back to what it once was. But it's kind of fascinating to see a storm like Barry evolve because of just how strange its evolution has been.
The nervous laughter continues on Force 13 Live as we wait for the National Hurricane Center update, which is due within the next 15 minutes, which could call Barry a hurricane just before it makes landfall. It's a long wait. Any more news from Recon at all? But last time we heard they weren't getting very much.
Yeah, they really haven't been getting much. The
new update hasn't gone in yet, so can't say much.
The winds were picking up as of the last update as it headed northwestward, but I'm not sure if this trend will continue over the next few minutes.
Now, it is entirely possible that the National Hurricane Center are waiting on Reconnaissance plane information before they put out their next update. That has happened before, so it could be going right to the wire as to whether we get a hurricane out of this or not. Again, just like a landfall, it is mainly symbolic at this point between tropical storms 70 miles an hour and hurricanes 75 miles an hour. The colour changes from green to yellow on our scale, and it changes from a storm to a 1 digit on the centre of the storm. But apart from that, the winds aren't really very much different, although they could be slightly larger in coverage and obviously slightly stronger near the centre.
Yeah, and I mean that's honestly what would happen. I think that's already what has happened. I no longer think this is a hurricane, but I think it was at some point. And I think, like you said, Nathan, looking at this in post is going to be an interesting endeavor to see if there's enough evidence to indicate this is a hurricane.
I think there might be.
I think there's a very good chance of that.
Okay.
We'll see. So this next advisory is going to be a full advisory, correct?
It is indeed. And again, we are a little bit quiet and static at the minute on our stream right now because we are just looking out for all of those latest observations. This is an extremely close call as to whether we get a hurricane out of this or not in the next 15 minutes. There's not really much else to look at the minute until we find out what the actual outcome is. Does anyone else have anything for us right now?
So, just waiting for the NHC's update.
Pretty much.
That's it.
Well, if you're worried about tornadoes, there aren't any tornado warnings in effect right now. And if you're worried about flash flooding, there aren't any of those in effect right now either. So the two main severe weather hazards aren't in play at the minute.
That's
hang
good
on.
news.
Pardon?
I'm seeing a peak 10-second wind reading of 75 knots recently, but I'm not sure if this is going to be included in an update. I may be mistaken, but we'll have to wait and see.
So that would be flight level, though, right?
Yes, flight
Yeah.
level.
But that could still bring it over 65 knots at the surface.
Well, a peak
No,
peak
it's-
surface.
That'll be
We've
close.
we've got a recent peak surface wind, but this is suspect. This is a suspect reading, so you get to throw this out the window. But peak 10-second surface wind, I would think of about 62 knots or so in the last pass, and before that, the next highest non-suspect reading looked like it'll be about 59 knots or so. 10-second reading.
Yeah. It's definitely looking like around 60 knots there with the, maybe 65, but I don't know.
But yeah, they're heading for the center again, so we'll see what's going on.
Yeah, this could be right down to the wire, like Nathan said, with just when the NHC releases their latest advisory. It's going to be really interesting to see if they make the hurricane status upgrade. They've been forecasting it for so long here, and at least as of right now,
They
it
have.
doesn't look like it very.
Yeah, they've been forecasting it, I think, ever since they designated it PTC2. They've been, forecasting, ever since it formed, basically, or just before it formed, they were forecasting.
So the first
that
advisory had a
hurricane.
75 knot peak, didn't it?
85, 85 mile an hour.
85 miles an hour.
Yep.
Well, it's still
Oh.
very quiet over there on the National Hurricane Center side of things. Any more recon information?
Not at the moment, unless somebody's getting it faster than I am.
No.
Alright, well, stay with us. This could happen at any time within the next 8 minutes. And we're also looking out to see whether this storm has made landfall on the experimental ATCF system. the real time. I'm just going to get another approximation now. And it is now, according to them, 3 miles offshore.
Yeah,
You think that the NHC will call landfall at their advisory?
They might say making landfall.
That's what I would think they'd go with.
I mean, yeah, looking at radar, I mean, I have the New Orleans and Lake Charles radar up, and it's hard to say.
And the
if that-
update
if-
is
if it-
out, and it is a hurricane. Hurricane
wow.
confirmed. Breaking news.
Wow.
Barry is a hurricane confirmed from the National Hurricane Center. The tropical storm watch for the Mississippi coast has been discontinued. A hurricane watch for the Louisiana coast east of Grand Isle has been discontinued. Tropical storm warning has been issued for the Louisiana coast from Cameron to Sabine Pass. They're giving it 75-mile-an-hour winds, as you'd expect, with a pressure of 993 millibars. It's gone up, which is very strange. And we're going to spend the next 5 minutes in a big rush updating all of our graphics.
Well, I mean, that's what you gotta do.
That's
when
one
you get a new
does.
full advice.
What a fun time.
Yeah, and I mean,
And I
the-
can't guarantee they'll be finished in time, so bear with us, will you? Please.
I mean, the thing about the upgrade to hurricane status, I mean, the ATCF did it, but the thing kind of confuses me is that they didn't before now and now they are. I'm not sure what observation would indicate that. It doesn't look like the latest recon aircraft has much evidence. I looked at Doppler radar, and radar is showing that there could be some quite strong 2 hurricane force winds going on in or near land at the moment. So I mean, Doppler radar might be a piece of evidence that they use in order to support hurricane status. I think it'll be
Last
very
time they did
interesting.
that.
I think they've done it before.
Yeah, I'm sure they have, but it might have been a while.
It'll be interesting to see what the forecast discussion says whenever that releases, because Barry's a hurricane, and we'll see what exactly does that. I guess we haven't actually looked at lower level wind observations yet. Let me take a look at that and see if
It's also key to note it looks like it's moving a little bit faster now. It's moving northwest at 6. So that's
Northwest
hopefully
at 6, yeah.
yeah,
this
hopefully it
actually-
gets faster.
There's
this
so many
actually
things
makes
that need changing on this screen.
it actually kind of makes sense. It's a hurricane when taking a look at surface observations, because there are winds of 65 to 58, and the point in between the 65 and 58 is supposed to be where the strongest winds are, probably 65 mile an hour observation just off the coast of Marsh Island. So that actually kind of makes sense if that's what they're using for extrapolation. I'm not 100% sure, but
Well,
here we go.
Looking at the
it's-
forecast,
Just
looking at the forecast discussion, it looks like the upgrade was mostly based off of the possibility that the strongest winds were not sampled from Doppler radar velocities and other surface observations and aircraft observations. They also know that hurricane force winds are limited to a small area east of the center, as one would expect.
Just to reiterate, there are no tropical storm watches in effect from this storm now. Now to bear with me just for a minute or two as we go into our intermission, because all of the graphics that you see by the screen need to change. Hurricane Barry is the latest news, though, as we take our short break here at Force 13 Live, Force 13 HQ. We'll be back with more coverage after this. Stay tuned. continues in a moment. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website, force13.com, our YouTube page, youtube.com/Force13, on Facebook under the same name, Force13, and our Twitter handle, it's @Force13 if you wish to get in touch. You can also add Force13 on Skype, and my personal account on Discord, Fool13, at extension 9094. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. This is Force 13 Live. Latest information on what is now Hurricane Barry, according to the National Hurricane Center. We're not quite sure how. I'm going to let the team talk for a while to see if they can get to the bottom of what's going on. Who'd like to go first?
Well, it's not like really surprising that they did it. I'm kind of surprised that they did it like right now. I would have thought they would have done it like overnight or something.
Well, looking off of the forecast discussion, they're noting that I think some of the reasons why they upgraded to a hurricane is because between 11 and 12Z, National Oceanic NOAA station in Eugene Island, Louisiana, reported sustained winds of 62 knots and a peak gust of 74 knots at an elevation of about 10 meters, which is about 33 feet. And they're also coming to their conclusion. They're also coming to their conclusion by using the Slidell radar, because that suggested 65 to 60 knot winds from using that radar. And then reconnaissance suggested winds of about 60 to 63 knots near Eugene Island as well. And those factors are some of what led to them upgrading it to a hurricane at this time, from what I'm seeing so far.
In another piece of breaking news, the experimental ATCF has now put Barry over land. It has made landfall at this hour as well.
Well, makes landfall just as it gets to a hurricane status. Wow. Interesting.
I mean, I think the reason that they made the upgrade, if you want the full truth, is because it's a very borderline case, and with it being so borderline, they may as well do it because number one, it's not going to make much of a difference in there's not much of a difference in wind speed, so it's not too far fetched. Number two, their forecast verifies. Number three, well, their forecast verifies, and number four, their forecast verifies.
And number 5, there's hurricane warnings in effect.
So it's. I think you understand where I'm coming from with
Yeah.
a part of the reason that it's a hurricane.
So that is the latest information. Just to remind you, a tropical storm warning has been issued for the Louisiana coast from Cameron to Sabine Pass.
Yeah. That is interesting because it looks like the tropical storm force winds are extending that far west now, all the way to
Yes.
the Louisiana-Texas border, according to their latest cone.
In the grand scheme of things, when it comes to land impacts, not much has really changed. It's still a stage 5 on the CDPS scale, which is potentially devastating. The rainfall could reach 15 to 20 inches in some areas. That's on top of what we've already seen. And storm surge could reach 6 feet across set parts of central Louisiana. They could all cause, potentially, devastating damage. The wind speed will probably not be such a big event, although there is a wide tropical storm field, especially on the eastern side.
Yeah.
If you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air, send a message to onto our chat section. Start your message with Force 13, all in text, just like several people have done just now. And if you have any questions that we'll take, we might take them whilst we continue to update all of these graphics here, because it's an absolute mess over here in the studio. Cooper, what do you think?
Well, I'm honestly rather surprised that Barry has come a hurricane just so soon and at such the last minute. And now that it is one, it's probably not going to be one for much longer. But severe impacts are still likely, and regardless of how much Barry weakens as it moves inland, it's going to be producing a lot of rainfall and continued storm surge as it progresses inland. And this could prove devastating to areas, especially coastal and riverside areas, which are already experiencing inundation.
Indeed. Just how bad is it on the ground at the moment, do we know?
I'm seeing a lot of flood warnings.
Yes. Of course, we had Nelson on the air overnight. He wasn't really talking about any inclement conditions at his place, was he, Thomas?
No, and that's because he didn't really have it. It was.
I mean, we are going to be talking weird. Places like Morgan City, who I believe a lot of it is without power now. Lafayette, and possibly towards the west.
Yeah, I still find it intriguing that the NHC went with a hurricane upgrade, but with the hurricane upgrade, I mean it's not that far-fetched, and I fully support a peak intensity at 75 miles per hour. I just think it should have been done a couple advisories ago, but we'll see. What post-analysis brings?
Assuming that the experimental ATCF is correct, that puts the storm... then again, it might have just gone with the National Hurricane Center information, actually. Just checking this out. Yes, so it has gone with the National Hurricane Center position. So it is 30 miles from New Iberia, 27 from Abbeville, 44 from Lafayette, 53 from Morgan City. It will probably start drawing away from there now. 85 miles from Lake Charles, 121 from Alexandria. And as you can see on the left-hand side, that is all up to date now as we watch that projected track. Obviously, it won't be a hurricane all the way inland like that. It's just a visualization of where the track of the storm will go. It probably won't hold hurricane status even for 6 hours.
No, yeah, I think at their intermediate advisory at 1 p.m. Central Time, it's safe to say that it's going to be inland by that time, I think. Would I be right in saying that?
Well, it's sort of inland already.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
sort of inland already, so 3 hours from now. So, yeah, and it's probably not going to be a hurricane by then.
And convection is just gradually fizzling away. I mean, it's just, it's still, don't get me wrong, this is still going to be a big rainmaker, but the strength of this is starting to fall off.
It certainly appears to be the case. I'm not sure if I've got any recent imagery here, so let's go back to Thomas's screen. Looking at that.
I'll refresh this real quick so that way we can look at.
Looking at that loop again. Any more information on Recon is a question.
Well, looks like they've gone into the center, wherever it's at. Looks like they've gone into it because the winds have dramatically decreased. The highest the highest SFMR that they've recorded so far that's non-suspect seems to be about 64 or 63 knots or so, 10 second wind.
Oh, it's very close.
So yeah, but yeah, it looks like they're getting to the center, as it were, right now. So we'll see what pressures they get.
I mean, when I take a look at potential suspect readings, there is a hurricane force one that is suspect. But I wouldn't be surprised, even if that is suspect, that did actually occur, just because of where the storm was at that time and how much the pressure is just really fallen off by that point. How it had gone down. So.
Yeah, well, that is the latest news. If you've missed it, 10 minutes ago, the National Hurricane Center upgraded Barry to the first hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season and the 4th hurricane to make landfall in Louisiana in the month of July. That is official according to the National Hurricane Center. So it has made landfall. It will start to move inland now, according to the National Hurricane Center at least, and I'm not really inclined to disagree anymore with that, to be honest. I think that's about right.
Yeah.
I'd agree.
So it's going to shuffle on
I'd agree as
inland
well.
and deliver quite copious amounts of rain to some areas there. Central Louisiana could see 15 inches. And that means we're going to finish our coverage at the end of this hour, because we function best here at Force 13 Main, at least, as an early warning service rather than an on-the-ground updates kind of thing. So we sort of feel a little bit surplus by the time a storm makes landfall. I'm not sure whether Force 13 US will be taking up coverage. I know that Tim will be there later this evening, but you might want to subscribe to them as well if you want more updates later on. You can search Force 13 US, all in text, or make it even easier, you could go to our channel page here and just add US on the end of the URL next to Force 13. It'll take you right the way there. Great. So, Barry with winds of 75 miles an hour, pressure of 993. Have they found any lower pressures in the recon plane?
The lowest I'm seeing is 999 so far.
999.
I saw 996, but that was probably about an hour.
I see.
The highest rainfall we're expecting in any main population center right now is Baton Rouge at 9 inches of further rain. But some smaller areas could get up to 15 inches.
Definitely. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out because, again, now that this is officially a hurricane, which I'm at the point that this is a very borderline case, and I don't exactly disagree. But it's. I think there was more evidence before, but I think there's enough now to support either way you'd go.
That's no good.
I mean, it's a 5-mile-an-hour difference. I mean, you can say extrapolated from 2 points that there'd be stronger winds, because on recon there are stronger winds between two surface observation centers, one in the water and one on land. And if you extrapolated that, you could say, hey, this is a hurricane. I mean, you had 70-mile-an-hour winds at both stations, and you could say, okay, it gets up to 75 in between. But then on the other hand, there's radar didn't say it got up to hurricane. Recon didn't have any extrapolated down to the surface readings that weren't suspect that said it was a hurricane. You have the satellite appearance, which is waning significantly. I mean, I feel like there's stuff on both sides of the coin, if you will.
Alright, does anyone happen to have accumulated rainfall radar right now? They do offer them on most of the National Weather Service radars.
I can get that.
There's a question about how much rain has fallen. I think it was in Mobile.
Mobile, Alabama. All right, let me get that.
And I'd like to know too. So.
Well, let's see. Got to find.
We're looking at Isaac's projection right now. What are we looking at here on these two screens?
Oh, I forgot I had it on. This is the satellite, visible satellite, and I'm looking at a radar here. I know it's really hard to see it, so I know it's really blurry and all that. But I'm seeing rainfall accumulations of about 5 up to 6 or 7 inches or so, and some isolated spots, but most of them are out to sea. On looking at the New Orleans radar, looks like Mobile got some accumulations here of about 3 inches or so, give or take, and then near Gulfport looks like accumulations of about 4, maybe 5 inches or so on radar. I was just looking at that, but I think Thomas is the radar, so it's a lot better than mine.
Yeah, I'm looking at a different radar. I'm looking at the Mobile radar. It's just to the west of Mobile, but I think it's about the same. It's showing rain accumulation. City of downtown Mobile about 1 inch, but if you go to the east, you'll see some 2.5 to 3, and even some 4-inch markers in some metro cities. There, you'll notice over water accumulations of 5 inches. Sporadically, I think, pop up. I know. Yeah, there we go. That 5.9, maybe even 6 inches in there. But that's over water. As soon as it goes over land, not quite as much, but still a good amount of rain in Mobile. We can actually check out some other radar sites real quick. We think that'd be a good idea. Because here's from the New Orleans side of things, how things are looking. There are some very potent rain bands that have moved through New Orleans right now to about 0.6 of an inch in total accumulation. So about 2 inches or so in this more intense line. That probably,
is that storm total or what?
That's storm total.
All right. Well, we did see those bands move through last night, didn't we?
Yeah. Storm total is just, I'm pretty sure it's well over 24 hours. Couldn't tell you for sure. And then we can go to the Lake Charles radar and just, the sharp, I guess, falling off of rain accumulations as you head over farther and farther west. So there we go. There are your rain totals. At least according to radar, I can look at some rain gauges and see what I can find.
We are just sorting things out here at the moment.
I'm looking at a graphic from the National Weather Service in New Orleans, and it's showing rainfall in the last 24 hours towards the east, towards Pascagoula, of around, I think, 2 to 5 inches or so, maybe up to 3 inches. Then it looks like near Homa, rainfall totals of about 2 inches or so in the last 24 hours, give or take. I don't know if you're able to pull up my screen. And so I know it's not the best representation, but it's the best I could do without
Just a moment.
my Discord
Here we go.
crashing. Yeah, you can see most of the heavy rainfall totals towards the east. Again, this is for the last 24 hours. This is not over the last
Nelson
5 days or
tells
so.
us
This is the last
that
24
he's
hours.
reported 0.5 inches since midnight.
Yeah, he lives around, I think, just west of downtown New Orleans or something like that. I'm not too familiar with that area, of course, just I don't live there. But rainfall totals are about 2 inches or so. It looks like to the northeast of Homa in the last 24 hours, and then also in the last 24 hours, some beefy rainfall totals near Gulfport and Pascagoula, of around 2 inches plus, and some spots up to 3 inches there on one of the islands there that I can't, for the life of me, remember the name of. Right there, little dot of red. But again, that's from the last 24 hours of rainfall. Just wanted to share that.
Thomas is showing us a warning map, and it's good to remind people what warnings we have in effect right now.
Yeah, and we honestly have quite a few. The National Hurricane Center does an excellent job when it does come to their warning system, and I'm totally not stalling for time as I pull up the warning location. There we go. So here are the current watches and warnings that are in effect. We have hurricane warning that's in effect for Intercoastal City to Grand Isle, tropical storm warning in effect for the mouth of the Pearl River to Grand. We also have one for Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Nervous, including the metropolitan New Orleans. And then we also have a tropical storm warning in effect for Intercoastal City to Sullivan. A storm surge warning is in effect for Intercoastal City to Biloxi, and Lake Pontchartrain also in a storm surge. A storm surge watch is in effect for Biloxi to the Mississippi-Alabama border, and a hurricane watch is in effect for Intercoastal City.
And then you look at all of those green areas which are flood-related watches and warnings. Are they flash flood watches or flood warnings? I'm struggling to get the context of that coloring.
So these are flash flood watches that you're seeing on the screen, and it really just shows you where the threat for very heavy rainfall that could cause very sudden could possibly occur. So we'll see. It's very it's kind of it's not surprising. I'm a little surprised that it's not slight farther west at this point. Although it looks like this has just slowly been extending eastward with time. The entire state of Mississippi is currently in a flash flood watch, which can really, I guess, just show you how much rain is truly expected to fall. So it's going to be quite a bit of rain over the next few days there.
Yep. I'm looking at Recon and... oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. Go ahead. Your turn.
Oh, yeah. I was looking at Recon and so far, at least flight level wise, the lowest pressures that I'm seeing are 998. But it could be a little bit lower than that at the surface, I want to say. So looks like high 990s.
Questions here. Likelihood that the storm will shift more to the east coast. There's a huge chunk of land in the way first. So I don't think it will be in anything by the time it gets to the East Coast, although one or two models did suggest it might regenerate after leaving the East Coast.
The Euro, last I checked, is the only model on board with that still. I'm not sure
Some
if
of
it's
the
still on board with that. Let's see.
More questions in the meantime.
Euro is not on board, but that's because of how far north
What
it
was that?
is. Probably a phone of some
car
sort.
horn.
Phone
His
vibrations
phone.
there. More questions. How long do you expect Barry to be a hurricane? Well, as we said, not very long at all.
Yeah, maybe like not even 3. By the next intermediate advisory, it will not be a hurricane. I don't think. I'd be surprised if it was.
All right, drop sound data just came in, and oh wait, no, that's not drop sound. That's actually from the previous one. I'm sorry, it's a little bit. My mind's a little scrambled right now, but I was just looking at the earlier drop sound of 986. The new one hasn't come in yet. It was just like in the same general reason as the last one.
Let's see if there's anything else we can get from the latest National Hurricane Center advisory. Just in case anyone's wondering, wind speed probabilities for the following locations. I'm going to read out the percentages, the numbers. Mobile, Alabama, 4%. Gulfport, 5. Stennis, 7. Burra, 6. Jackson, 8. New Orleans, 43. Baton Rouge, 98. Morgan City, 99. Alexandria, 93 now. Lafayette, 99. New Iberia, 99. Pretty much 100. Shreveport, 32. Fort Polk, 89. Lake Charles, 97. Cameron, 99. Jasper, Texas, 44. I think it's... I don't want to get this pronunciation wrong. Kountze in Texas. How do you say that?
I do not know how to say that.
Okay, 23%.
Never
again?
even heard it.
Port Arthur, 45%. Galveston, 5. Houston, 4. Freeport, 3. High Island, 11. And chance of hurricane force winds is 60% in Lafayette and 74% in New Iberia. And believe it or not, a 1 in 4 chance, 25% in Alexandria, which is well inland.
Interesting how
Alexandria,
they have such high chances for inland areas.
Yeah, I mean,
the thing
given-
is, this,
I know what argument you're about to make, Thomas, but I just, it barely has hurricane force winds. If it does, surely it can't last.
yeah. So what do you think the argument I was about to make was?
You were gonna make the "it's gonna weaken slowly" argument.
Well, yeah, because it's going to. It'll speed up after it goes well inland, but at least at first it has marshland right at landfall. By the time it would get to Alexandria, the National Hurricane Center is still forecasting a tropical storm.
Are you
And
suggesting
I'd
if
have
it
to
moves
agree.
slowly, it could still be a hurricane in 6 hours?
No, it's weakening at this point. I don't think it'll be a hurricane in 6 hours. I mean, it's not impossible, especially
No.
if it gets one or two more convective flows. But at this point, I think it's pretty unlikely.
All right. Any other comments from the team? Ryan, you've been fairly quiet recently.
Well, I don't really have much more to say since Barry, basically, I think we can say that it has made landfall at
Do you
this
think it
point.
could threaten your area in any way, shape, or form? Or even your
That's
state?
actually a good question. I'd have to look at the NHC's 5-day. Does anyone have that?
Well, it doesn't extend very far. I mean,
No,
it's probably better to look at their rainfall potential graphic.
And the rainfall potential. Okay. Well, let's see what the. Does anyone have the rainfall? The WPC graphic.
I could post it to
Thomas
you.
is showing it here.
Oh,
There's the excessive rainfall outlook for
that's-
today. If you
Right.
want direct
That's the
rain
excessive.
accumulation.
No, like direct
Direct.
rain
you are.
accumulations. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'd get much.
And this is something
I
that we
think-
ought to point out as well. All that orange area, is that 6 inches there?
Yeah, 6 inches.
So that is a large area of 6 inches there. How will that affect the Mississippi Valley region? Because I don't know the area really, but logic dictates to me that that might cause some serious problems.
Well, it's gonna flood. I mean, that's the simplest way to put it. It's gonna.
Yeah,
It's
okay, I don't...
the Mississippi, and it's very high already on the river flood gauge, and it's forecasted to actually be historically high on multiple occasions.
Yeah, okay, I do not expect any impacts from Barry in my area. I could get some clouds, but nothing more than that.
That's what I've been getting.
All right. Well,
yeah,
sorry.
and that'd be like midweek. That'd be like Wednesday, if that were to Wednesday, Thursday, if that were to happen.
We're taking a short break here at Force 13 HQ. We'll be back with the final half hour of coverage on our channel for the time being, at least. Of course, there's plenty of videos that go out in the meantime on our channel too. This is our 19th and final hour of consecutive coverage here on Force 13 Live. Stay tuned for the last part. And that should say 4 now. We haven't updated that yet. Making its infamous landfall, Hurricane Michael is still a Category 3 as it enters the state of Georgia. This is Force 13 Live. We are tracking Hurricane Barry, which was given that upgrade by the National Hurricane Center at the start of this hour. This is the final half hour of our coverage because Barry has also made landfall in the process on Marsh Island, Louisiana. And then after that, of course, we will provide regular updates beyond that on the Force 13 channel in the standard format. Of course, our live streaming events occur when there is a real danger and when we feel obliged or feel that our information gets out better when we are live on the air. Alright, we are still joined by Cooper, Isaac, and Thomas.
Hello.
We haven't heard from Cooper in a while. Any new developments? Any thoughts at your end?
Well, earlier I was looking at a special warning over the Mobile Bay for a shower capable of producing water spouts, but that's set to expire within the next 12 minutes or so.
Okay. We are also, of course, on the lookout for any severe weather warnings like tornadoes or flash flooding. Nothing of the sort at the minute. That might change when the bulk of the convection, what's left of the convection from this storm, moves inland. Thomas, could we switch back to satellite imagery?
Yes. There you go.
And that's the latest look at the satellite in Barry. It's a big lump. It's a mess.
Well, it's always been a mess. It wasn't a mess for maybe 4 hours, if I'm being generous.
There is a decent
And then-
case for hurricane status overnight, early hours of this morning.
Yeah. If they're saying, the problem is, if they're saying that this is a hurricane, then there are a lot of other storms that come to mind. Should not be hurricane.
Well,
It would be, just judging satellite appearance. If observations deem it, then I guess it's true. But, I don't know. I mean, I honestly think it might just be a hurricane for the sake of forecast verification, since it was so borderline. Forecast verifies,
very
and
cynical of you.
well, but I mean, am I wrong?
We've just had a comment here saying it looks like a chicken.
Personally, I want to agree, but it does look rather disorganized.
It looks like a chicken. Oh, I see
Chicken.
it. I see it. I see what they're
I'm
referring.
sorry. It's an outrageous comment. This is a serious situation. Hurricane warnings are still in effect. Let's reiterate those warnings right now. So, a hurricane warning is in effect for Intracoastal City to Grand Isle, a tropical storm warning for the mouth of the Pearl River to Grand Isle, and Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Maury-Park, including metropolitan New Orleans, and Intracoastal City to Sabine Pass. A storm surge warning for Intracoastal City to Biloxi, Mississippi, and Lake Pontchartrain. A storm surge watch for Biloxi to the Mississippi-Alabama border. I'm sorry. This is very unprofessional of me. I'm still getting over that comment. And a hurricane watch for Intracoastal City to Cameron. I thought I'd made it all the way through that then. Alright, let's move on. I mean, we're looking at that convection now, and it's all along the shore, just out at sea still. When is it actually going to move inland with those high cloud tops?
So the thing is that what was expected is what's going on. The convection is displaced to the southeast of the center of circulation because it's being sheared so much right now. And what's going to happen is, as this is taken north, convection is resisting at the moment, but will likely be following suit here relatively soon. And with that will also probably strengthen a little bit as it approaches shore, since it's not losing energy because it's competing with two different steering flows. It's still trying to follow southerly flow while the center is trying to drag it northward, and it's kind of meaning that energy is more being used to try and drag it one way or the other than to produce more convection.
So interesting and odd how that is the case. It has been dragged around from pillar to post in almost all directions during its life.
Yeah. It is quite interesting to see, that's for sure.
Can we remember where the first forecast graphic from the National Hurricane Center projected the landfall?
I believe it was right about where it's. I think it was slightly further east.
Grand Isle, I think, was the furthest east we ended up putting our projected landfall.
Yeah, the first cone was a little farther east than where it is now.
And then you've got that other little flare up to the southwest, which looks better than the main part of the storm.
Yeah.
Certainly with higher cloud tops at this time.
I don't know if you guys are noticing this on radar. But it looks like that main reservoir to sea,
Let's
whatever
see.
we've been tracking for the past 2
Oh
hours,
dear.
looks like it's heading southwest now. Maybe trying to like get itself organized, or maybe trying to go more to the west or southwest here. But then again, I don't know if this is I don't know if this is the actual circulation or a
Very
reservoir to
clear
sea.
there.
Is it Is it the main circulation? I think it is.
I mean, if you go to the end of that loop, it would make sense that, or maybe it's pivoting around the circulation, which is just to the southeast on those last frames.
And here's the NHC's first cone on the storm, and it's really interesting.
Oh wow,
The
way west.
evolution of the cone, and you can see it here, really in this loop, and you can see the evolution of the cone with time. You can see where it is now, but you can see the gradual easterly trend at first before a shift slightly farther west occurred.
There it is. That's great. Back on that radar imagery there, and some green areas entering not too far from New Orleans there. But as you can see, the main bulk of the storm is still some distance offshore.
Yeah, the center's right around here, and in those frames it was going like that, and then it looped. It was like it's trying to loop more to the southwest, or maybe trying to complete a circle here in the radar. It's hard to say, but if it is trying to go back out to sea, that'll be quite something to see. But I'm also noticing I'm seeing a lot more greens and lighter blues than I did earlier in the loop when it was just starting. So it could be trying to fire some cloud cover of some sort over the center, whatever exactly it is at this point.
And just a
But just wanted to know.
just to remind people, we do think it has made landfall. The National Hurricane Center, have they explicitly said that? I don't think so. Although by definition the coordinates when you plug them in is squarely over Marsh Island, so I guess by definition you've got to say that it has made landfall. They didn't actually explicitly say that, but it is the case that Barry has made landfall pretty much at the top of this hour, just when it became a hurricane officially. And Nelson on the ground there now tells us that it is raining in New Orleans with a rain rate of 0.35 inches per hour.
Yeah, this is the Lake Charles radar, so it's not gonna really pick up the rain over in New Orleans, but definitely looks like it could be. Definitely according to Nelson. Let me see if I could pull up that radar really quick. I think I have it somewhere here. Hold on. Yep, there it is.
Oh, that's now?
Yeah, this is the New Orleans. Yeah, this is the New Orleans radar.
So there's a plume of significant showers and possible thunderstorms there pushing through.
There you go. There's the loop again. Yeah, a lot of convection.
Now,
Most
I'm
of it
not
looks to be
fully
situated
versed
to
with
the east.
not fully versed with the colouring here. Like, what would a severe thunderstorm look like on this graphic?
Probably about the same as it. Just a tiny bit cooler in terms of radar. Probably maybe a orangey color, like a orangey red color.
Like, there's a few reds on the screen there, but none of those are severe thunderstorms.
Well, the key is up there.
Oh, it was just
Yeah.
The rate Rainfall rate is what
Ah.
this radar depicts. The severity of a thunderstorm is not determined by rainfall. There are some severe thunderstorms we've seen that you can barely actually see on radar from reflectivity, but are producing strong enough winds and maybe enough hail at the upper level of the storm structure to allow it to become severe. So unfortunately, it's kind of difficult to tell if a storm's severe or not because there's no definitive look to look for, especially in a hurricane like this one. It's a little easier when you have things like supercells to determine which storms are severe and which ones are not. But in this case, it can be a little more.
Exactly. That's took the words out of my mouth there. Exactly. Yeah. But this is the New Orleans radar at the time being.
And there
You can
they
see
go,
most
they're
of the
all
rainfall.
pushing through right now. We'll keep our eye on that too, but nothing severe at the moment to report. This is Force 13 Live. We're here for another 15 minutes before we finish our coverage, which has been going for 19 hours. So start your message with Force 13 all in text. We'll take pretty much all kinds of questions for this last period of our stream here. Let's go back to Isaac's, not Isaac, but Thomas's satellite imagery with the latest there, and any change, anything that we can tell from that satellite right now? Not really.
No, other than we're starting to see a new convective flare.
Yeah.
Right around here began just
Tiniest
at
little
the end.
inkling there.
And that could fan out a little bit and produce some higher
And
tops
this
for a
is
little
how that
while.
original one that made Barry the hurricane that it is today, the original one from about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock this morning, that's when it was really blowing up, and it started just like that one that we've just seen initiate in the last few minutes.
Yeah, you'll notice this one down here, though, that started to do that, and then it just has kind of fanned out and has already started to die off. So this could do the same, but it also could be the beginnings of some much heavier rain on the southern side as this shifts east, and all the moisture here shifts east. You can kind of see an axis here. This very well-defined boundary, actually, between the dry air mass in the front and the moist air mass. And what's going to happen is with time, as the front moves northward, it's going to kind of gradually shift the axis of the dry air to wet air really more vertically. So this will gradually become more of a easterly bias convection instead of a southeasterly bias convection.
So there it is, and don't forget, storm surge values from this storm could reach 6 feet in some parts of central Louisiana, with rainfall still expecting isolated amounts of 20 inches. What was the maximum rainfall recorded so far, did you say, on land? Fives?
I believe it was about 4 or 5 inches. That's using storm total rainfall.
So we could still see potentially 25 inches in 1 or 2 spots. Probably not. I think we're looking at maximums of 20 now. It's still a lot of rain, almost 2 feet.
Yeah, and flooding is still going to be a big concern. The National Weather Service still flash flood watches in effect for numerous areas. I mean, if I turn off the hurricane and tropical storm warnings that you see here, it really does just show you the sheer size of the flash flood watch area. And you can see it's very, very large here. The entire state of Mississippi is within the flash flood watch. The eastern 2/3 to 3/4 of Louisiana is within, and now the eastern half really of Arkansas. So the flooding threat continues to increase in aerial coverage of where flooding could occur.
And even westernmost Tennessee there as well.
and also within flood watches.
And the remnants will be tracking almost directly over your place, Thomas.
Pretty much, yeah. It'll be well on its way. And it may not dissipate, but at the time it gets really going to be to my south where the most rainfall occurs.
Indeed. All right.
We do have a question in the chat asking, what is Barry's current pressure and winds? I think it's 75, 993.
Yes, that is what the National Hurricane Center went with. So they went from 70 miles an hour and 991 to 75 miles an hour and 993. So it has become shallower, yet it's strengthened.
Let's see here, I'm taking a look at these latest two frames, and it looks like that convective burst is going to start fanning out relatively soon. The question is whether it's going to die off or it's going to really begin to build another big convective envelope, because quite simply this one's done.
Yes.
So we'll see if more convection.
I'm looking right now at a strong thunderstorm that's being warned upon over let's see, I believe it's over Marion County in Mississippi. It's associated with seems to be an outer band. So not sure if this will intensify further or not, but something to note.
We're just looking at Isaac's imagery now as well.
Yeah, it gets. I was just looking at it on radar. Yeah, there was. It had a special marine warning earlier, but that's since been discontinued. But yeah, you can see the line heading into, well, right over rather, Mobile. Looks like it's heading. Well, actually, I don't know if it'll head for, but it's near Pensacola at this time.
Is it?
I haven't. I don't know the. Yeah, it looks like it's moving. It's trying to move to Pensacola, but I think it's moving more north, I would say. I don't know.
So you're looking at that edge there?
Yeah, this edge right here.
Yep.
If you can see my mouse. I mean, it could go over to Pensacola. It's hard to say. It looks like it's moving more north than anything than east. But what do I know? But certainly interesting. Going back to New Orleans radar, you could see some rain starting to really pick up towards western New Orleans there.
Yeah.
And into Homa.
A few blow-ups going on there, by the looks of things.
I know we only have about 10 minutes left of coverage, so just a reminder to people in the chat, if you have a question, tag Force 13, just type at Force 13, I'm all in, and it'll light up for us, and we'll be more than glad to answer your questions as we will be going off the air soon. So please ask your question before we go off the air. We'd be more than glad to answer.
Yep.
I'm just checking some more things right now. The imagery is having difficulty at the minute, it would appear.
Well, let's see if my imagery can be of any use. I've just refreshed it.
There's that flare up again, and we still haven't seen much more of that.
No. All right. We do have a couple of questions. First one being, how much rain is Baton Rouge going? Long story short,
We're
it's going to
projecting
be a lot.
We're projecting a further 9 inches here.
And then another question: if the other convection somehow develops into something, would that mean it would be called Barry 2? I don't think that there's going to be a secondary. I don't think that there'll be a there will be a secondary circulation that develops. here. I don't think it'll develop into something. But if it were to somehow develop into something, yeah, I mean, it's a different center. I'm not sure. It depends on if it would develop over Barry's current center or not.
Yeah.
It's looking very poor right now, though.
Yeah, it
It definitely
really
is.
is.
By the minute. There's an interesting line developing along the coast of, well, near the landfall zone, actually.
Yeah. And that's because of that boundary between the dry and wet area. So it's kind of like it's a trigger for thunderstorm development. This front is starting to trigger moisture and storms. So as the front moves in, the dry air moves in. This is a dry line, and that's going to the warm, moist air to rise over. And because of that, condensation occurs, and therefore we see lines like this.
I'm noticing the northern side of the circulation that the convection's starting to become a little bit more fragmented.
Yeah. And I think that convection here is just generally going to go downhill. I'm not sure how much convection there is on the northern side of the circulation itself at this point.
Well, it
If
would
it's
appear
over
to be
land.
none.
Yeah, it looks like absolutely none. I mean, this is strange because it's a hurricane with no northern convection.
It's like the exact opposite of what you would expect for a seared hurricane. Usually they're kind of seared to the north, but this one's like the opposite. It's most of the rain and everything's to the south and southeast.
So it looks like we're going to be ending today's stream on a note of incredulity and bafflement.
Yeah. I mean, it's Barry's going to be one for the books when it comes to its track, its development, and I think it's a reminder, as a lot of storms have been this year, that there are unexpected and different ways that tropical cyclones can develop. It's not exact science. And if I'm not mistaken, I feel like a lot of tropical cyclones this year have been harder to forecast than normal.
Give it as a challenge.
Would I be correct in saying that?
Which
Some of these have been a
examples?
little bit more difficult. In particular, this environment.
Vayu. That was a pretty crazy one as well.
Value is pretty challenging.
But these are challenging parts of the world. You talk about the Southwest Indian Ocean, that's usually not too difficult. Generally, places out at sea aren't too difficult to forecast. Does tend to be places closer to land, and especially at a little bit higher latitude, like these. And Vayu must have been around 20 north, right? At least.
Yeah.
And this is near 30 north.
I just wanted to mention really quickly, Recon is going into the stronger winds again, and they're finding so far 10-second sustained 10-second winds from the surface at 60 knots.
Oh.
So.
Well then.
Just something to note.
Interesting.
Oh dear. That pretty much concludes our coverage for the time being. We are really pleased that you joined us here on Force 13 Live at some point in the last 19 hours. We hope that we have produced an excellent service. We are definitely doing our best. And we have been, a lot of our team members have been working very diligently. There's been a huge amount of dedication by some of our members through the night and into the early hours of this morning. We've been here covering the latest on Barry. But it is time to finish now. Barry has made landfall. It has reached hurricane status as it's done so, but that's pretty much the landfall. That is sort of when we reach the end of our useful ability. here on our live streams. There will be more regular updates on the way on Force 13's YouTube channel, and the Force 13 US team might be taking part in some activities later on today as well. You can find them by searching Force 13 US. All of our regional channels are linked on our main channel's YouTube page. For now, it's time to let you go, and we'll see you again soon at some point, whenever the next storm comes knocking. Stay tuned for the latest on our YouTube and on our social outlets. For now, stay safe out there. That's all from us. We'll see you again soon. Good night. Good day. Almost good night here.